Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be covering 5 beginner friendly yoga poses that you can do at any level. So if you're new to yoga and you're not sure where to start, give these poses a try. First up is Tadasana, mountain pose. Now just from first glance, this pose might not seem like it's doing much, but it is pivotal to work on your stability and foundation. So starting with the big toes touching, heels is slightly apart. Make sure that your legs are engaged, so knees are facing outward, pelvis is tucked under, shoulders is nice and relaxed, standing up nice and tall. Chin should be about level with the floor, so make sure that your head is not too far backwards or looking down. Looking straight ahead, placing your arms at your side, standing up nice and tall, drawing the energy from the ground all the way up the spine, moving all the way to the crown of the head. Now, if having your feet so close together is a little uncomfortable for you, you can have the feet slightly apart, but making sure that both feet is facing the same direction and that your weight is evenly distributed between both feet. Take a moment to assess where your weight is being distributed through your feet. You don't want the weight too much on the outside of the foot or on the inside of the foot. Some of us also has the tendency to either push all of our weight backwards into the heels or forwards into the front of the foot. Try and make your weight as even as possible, shifting and aligning the hips when needed, and just adjusting, playing around a little, seeing what feels good and seeing if you can get your weight centered. Now, once you feel nice and steady and comfortable, move your awareness to your spine, making sure that it's nice and tall and elongated and that you're not hunched over or leaning too far backwards. Your weight needs to be centered. Spine nice and tall, shoulders relaxed and away from your ears. Also making sure that you're not arching your back. Engage your core for more stability and set your gaze forward. Arms is out by your side, palms facing forward. Once you feel good here, you can add in some variations. Taking an inhale and raising both arms overhead. You can even allow the palms to touch if you are able. And you can even add in a side bend. If you're unable to add in a side bend or have your palms touch, you can use a strap as I'm using here. This will help you to bring the hands closer together. Just a little tip for the side bend. Make sure that your chest is nice and open and lifted and doesn't collapse too far forward. You want to keep it nice and aligned. You also want to make sure that your hips are facing forward and it's nice and even instead of shifting your weight either too far back or too far forward. Next up we have Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Now you can move directly from mountain pose into forward bend, or you can first make some foot adjustments before heading into the pose. Feel free to adjust however you need to accommodate for your body. If you need to place your stance a little wider to accommodate maybe for your belly, feel free to do so. If you suffer from tight hamstrings, this might be a little uncomfortable for you, so go ahead and place a small bend in your knee. Once again, be mindful of where your weight is distributed, making sure that it's evenly distributed through your feet and that your feet is grounded. Toes is spread, allowing yourself to be anchored. Now, if you're completely new to this, you might not even be able to go too far forward. If this is as far as you're able to go, that is perfectly okay. Important to note when you do try this pose, try and relax your shoulders and your neck. Allow your head to just hang loose. Shoulders is relaxed, all tension is just melted away. Now you can leave your arms hanging like little rag dolls, or you can clasp your elbows. Some fun movements that you can add into this pose is by just doing a side stretch, placing one hand on the ground or on your knee or wherever you're able to rest it, lifting and opening up the opposite side and then just dipping that one knee down. You can also do this as a wide forward fold, so opening the legs wider than hip distance and just walking from side to side. You can also add in a side stretch here in the wide forward fold. A little tip here to bring the ground a little higher, you can use blocks or even a chair. Our next pose is plank pose. Now you can move from forward fold into a plank pose by just walking the hands out in front of you or walking the feet back depending on where you are set up. The aim here is to have the weight evenly distributed between both hands and both feet, making sure that your palms is underneath your shoulders and your fingers are spread wide to grip into the ground. Your body needs to be straight in a line, so drawing a line from the heels of the feet up to the top of your head. Core needs to be engaged, pelvis tucked under, rib cage tucked in and not flaring out, keeping your legs engaged as well, and making sure that your hips is in line and not tilted or lifted upwards. Some variations for these, you can do these on your knees as well. So either keeping the toes tucked under or keeping the feet flat on the mat, whichever is comfortable for you. Just making sure that you have a nice straight line from your knees all the way up to the crown of your head. If this is placing strain on your wrist, you can go ahead and try a forearm plank. Next up, we have downward facing dog. Moving from plank pose, you can go ahead and raise your hips as high as you're able to and move directly into downward dog. The aim here is to draw the tailbone up towards the sky, towards the ceiling, trying to keep a straight back. Your shoulders needs to be pushed away from your ears, keeping your gaze between your feet or your knees. A common mistake that I find is when clients have their feet too close together, then there isn't enough balance. Now, the aim here is not to get your heels to the ground. I know that there's a lot of people that will say you have to get your heels to the ground, but in this case, as a beginner, it's not necessary. You're only going to add too much strain and too much pressure on yourself. Another mistake that I see is either having your feet too far back, which means now you're bordering between a down dog and a plank. You want to have a nice V shape with your body. And this position might also be a little tough if you have tight hamstrings, so feel free to place a small bend in the knees if you have to. If bending this far forward is also a problem for you, you can even bring the ground a little higher by using a chair. Some movements that you can add in here is by pedaling out the feet. This is a nice hamstring and calf stretch. You can even do some knee tucks by bending both knees at the same time. And lastly, you can add in a twist by tapping the opposite ankle. And we're finishing off with Balasana, child's pose. So we're going to make our way onto our knees, untucking our toes and walking the hands out in front of us, allowing the upper body and forehead to rest onto the mat. Some adjustments that you can make. Place your knees slightly wider to accommodate for your upper body. Some people might have difficulty having their arms stretched out in front of them, so you can place your forearms just next to your body, or you can even have the hands extended towards the back of the room. If you find that your hips is hovering a little high and you're unable to get it down onto your heels, you can place a pillow just behind your knees for support. You can even use a pillow or a bolster to support your upper body if you're unable to go all the way down towards the mat. Here's some added movement that you can add into this pose. Walking your hands to one side of the room, making sure still that your hips is level towards the mat. You can place one hand on top of the other for a deeper stretch, making sure to do both sides. Another option is threading the needle. So bringing one arm across the body underneath the opposite one as it's extended out in front of you, allowing the side of your face to rest on the mat. I hope this information has been helpful. Let me know down below if you've tried it and if you have any questions. I hope you have a beautiful day further. Thank you very much for watching.